stage of our career, like I had Coach K talk about this all the time. Like you can't win championships when you have really bad habits. Yep. And you have really bad body language, and then you do a ton of bitching all the time. Like, let's be honest about it. Like, those are three things that we associate with Luka on the defensive end, right? Like, offensively, he is prolifically great, but his habits are things that are not really good. And these are the things that we're talking about here. And you're just even seeing, like, these are little things where you're like, hey, man, get out of your own way. Like, you need to be great. And also, look, Luka got blown by more times in Game 2 of the NBA Finals than any other player in the last 10 years. So you think he's going to come out in Game 3 and all of a sudden be different? When you get tired, CJ, what happens? Your bad habits come out, right? You have to be more intentional with what you do. I think this is a moment of clarity that we're seeing for Luka. We've seen every great player go through it. I know everybody's going to kill Luka today. I hear him defensively, a ton of room of improvement. But we saw MJ and Scottie talk about trust. We saw LeBron James, can you hit the shot down the stretch? We've seen Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown get to NBA Finals and Eastern Conference Finals and not get over the hump. This is the moment where Luka, this offseason, if they're going to lose. Boston's going to win their 18th championship, okay? Yep. He needs to lose weight. Let's be honest about it. He needs to be better defensively. And CJ, you said it. If he could be functional, not good, not great, functional defensively and make sound decisions when his conditioning is better down the stretch for who he needs to be offensively, then he can win a championship. But this is his moment of clarity.
Life comes at you fast.
Really fast. This is
A week and a half ago, we were having a conversation on this show. Is Luka Doncic the best player in the world? And today, he is the reason that his team fell down 3-0 last night, despite the fact that they obviously would not have been anywhere near this position without him. So what are the right things to say, Wendy? How do we, in a big picture way, sum up Luka Doncic at this moment?
Well, I think he is maybe one of the best players in the world, if not the best player in the world. And that's why it's frustrating, because he didn't play, he didn't give a winning performance. You know, he can talk about the 5th and 6th fouls. He probably should have gotten 3 or 4 technical fouls last night. The veteran crew that did this game stayed out of giving him technicals. If this was a regular season game, he might have been ejected because of the way he was acting to the officials. How many times did he take himself out of plays where he didn't get back defensively because he was complaining about officiating? This is something that's happening over and over. And he's had to apologize for it and say he's going to do better. But this is the NBA Finals. The standard here is enormous. And that's the thing. The Celtics are a team that has been through the trials and tribulations. They've been through the frustrations, and they've risen above it. They have earned the position that they're in. What we're saying here is this is something that Luka is learning. He needs to use this as a learning experience. This can end up being a positive. I can look into the future and be 2 years from now and see Luka holding the Bill Russell trophy in one hand and the Larry O'Brien trophy in the other and say, you know what, back in 2024, I wasn't ready to win and I had to learn how to do it. That's what I'd like to see. But my thing is, I have now seen this exact script play out repeatedly where in these really important games, he's not on the floor. Can't happen again. Got to be better defensively. He doesn't have to go to the Hall of Fame as a defensive player, but he can't allow himself to be taken out emotionally and physically like he is in this moment.
I'll just very quickly point out that play that we keep showing you there, in case you didn't see it, was one where while he's whining and looking for a call, the entire play goes back the other way, and they give up an uncontested 3. And Doris, to her credit, called him out for it immediately. That's the play that we're showing you.
Sometimes in basketball and sports in general, you need your boys or your peers to say what's really happening, what's going on, a dose of reality. And if I were around Luka, or if you're Kyrie, you're saying to Luka, look, stop listening to people calling you the best offensive player in the world. Let's become the best player in the world. In order for you to become the best player in the world, this cannot be true. The Mavs have a better defensive rating with Luka on the bench than on the floor in every season of his career. That cannot be true. You have to be functional on the defensive end. And in order for that to go next level, that's what we need. That's where you need to go.
That's the question, because he is the leader of this team, right? That's the reality. Unless, what I'm going to ask you here as a longtime NBA veteran is there someone who can say something to him? If so, what? And if they did, would he listen?
I think there's 2 people he'll listen to. Kyrie, because he has a championship, and I think if you look at Kyrie's maturation this season, how he's changed the narrative around his name, Look at what he did in the Western Conference Finals. He was defending at a high level. He was great defensively in the OKC series. He wasn't great offensively because they kind of took him out of the game. But he took steps forward and said, I'm not going to worry about my offense. I'm going to focus on my defense because that's what's going to allow us to win a championship. I think he can have the conversation with Luka, but I think more importantly, Jay Kidd, the Hall of Fame coach, is going to have real conversations with him. You've seen his press conference after the game. He talked about how Luka has to be better defensively because they're targeting him. They're going to continue to target him every year, similar to ways in which I've been targeted throughout my career. You have to make a decision defensively, and you're going to get scored on because it's a make-or-miss league, and these guys are great. Jaylen Brown's going to score. Jason Tatum's going to score. Drew Holiday, they're going to score, but you have to make it difficult for them to score and force them into tough twos like they did Jaylen Brown down the stretch when he pump faked and shot. But I think it's going to come down to Jay Kidd, Kyrie, and more importantly, himself to dig deep and fight or fold.
I think someone in the game last night also should have told him, like, hey, this isn't working, because we're talking about his defense, right, and the fouls on the defensive side. But even offensively, we saw him continuously try to drive to the basket, take a lot of dribbles, lean into people's bodies, looking for a foul call. How many times did he go to the basket where at times we thought he was getting fouled, but the refs were simply not calling it? And so instead of getting frustrated over and over that you're not getting the foul calls that you're looking for, and instead of doing the same thing over and over, something has to change. And the biggest key for Luka is when he is that frustrated, turning his energy to his teammates. All of that energy, how demonstrative he is, and how he wants to just yell at the referees, yell with excitement to your teammates and allow it to build you up instead of just tear everything down. I felt like he was a huge distraction for the team yesterday, even when the crowd was in it. There were times they're getting back in the game and Luka's still visibly frustrated.
He has 27 points on 27 shots last night, 1 of 7 from 3. And for all the calls that he's looking to get, there were very few free throws attempted in this game, just 30 foul shots between the two teams. So they were letting them play, which I think most of us want to see in the finals. He was complaining about it all night long.
Look, the two best players for Boston are also two really good defensive players.
Yes.
I mean, Jaylen Brown has been prolific defensively with the energy he's played on. And I want to give a big shout out to the way the Celtics play, with the firepower that they have offensively, with how connected they are defensively, and also Jaylen Brown down the stretch, a guy who's been working on his mid-range jumpers throughout the course of the offseason, made 2 critical, 1 fadeaway and then 1 pull-up, Drea, on your tape. Yep. The head fake, cool, calm, collective, under pressure. Shout out to the way this team plays.
Well, shout out to the way they play, but also shout out to the way they carry themselves, because there were actual multiple moments on the floor where Jason Tatum didn't agree with a foul call. He might have said one thing to the ref, and then he turns, he runs, he refocuses. Like Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum, their ability to refocus and lock back in and be leaders while also being productive on the floor is night and day compared to what Luka's was last night.
Well, they scored 61 points on 48 shots, to be clear. I mean, they had a huge night. And while this morning is going to be a lot about Luka, and it should be, because that is the story that comes out, there is also an element of this, Wendy, I feel like we've been talking about this forever now, you and I, over the years on this show. We may be seeing these Celtics growing up right before our eyes. There were so many times we've seen them struggle. We've seen them fall. We've seen them knock on the door and not quite get through it. And they are 6-0 in clutch time games in this postseason. Exactly where we thought that the Mavericks would have the advantage in this series, it has been the Celtics who have found a way to get a stop. They have found a way to get a big bucket where they needed it. Again, Brown magnificent in that. The Celtics won this game last night every bit as much as the Mavericks lost it.
This is a coronation for them. George Sedano, who's our ESPN radio reporter, was in the huddles at the end of the fourth quarter last night, and Jaylen Brown is in there telling his teammates, it's time for us to graduate. Here we are, let's graduate. And I couldn't have put it better if I sat down at my computer for 2 hours than describing it as that. This is their matriculation. They have been working on this for the better part of a decade, even going back to before they were Celtics, when the Celtics made the big Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett trade and began the process of getting here. And certainly these last few years when they've had their moments where they've melted down. And even in this game, they were on the verge here. But each one of their key players all stepped up when that run was coming and made key plays. They had great poise. They had a great game plan. What do? They shoot three-pointers and they defend on the perimeter. 3 games in, they've got 21 more three-pointers than the Mavericks. That's their game plan. They have held the Mavericks under 100 points 3 times. This is Celtics basketball, and they're 15-2 in the postseason. They haven't lost in a freaking month.
They're 79-20 right now on the season if you include the regular season. No, the conversations
Good habits.
after they win this thing, assuming obviously nothing unprecedented happens here, are going to be about putting this Celtics team, and this season at least, in historical perspective. Right, stay where you are. We're
Chào mừng đến với Bình Nguyên Vô Tận.
Quang minh mang đến cho ta sức mạnh, nhưng trái tim nhiệt huyết mới đem lại sự dũng cảm. Trước mặt ta, bóng tối không thể lẩn trốn. Tên thần. Nhất thiết chuyên tâm thì nói gì được.
You have defeated an enemy. An ally has been defeated. An enemy has been defeated.
Ta là người thần tộc, ta tôn sùng quang minh.
An enemy has been defeated.
thương hại ta, nhưng chỉ có ta mới là người nhìn nhận mình.
An ally has been defeated.
Quang minh mang đến cho ta sức mạnh, nhưng trái tim nhiệt huyết mới đem lại sự dũng cảm.
An enemy has been defeated. Your team has destroyed a tower. An ally has been defeated. An enemy has been defeated. An enemy has been
Ta là người
defeated.
thần tộc.
Double kill.
Tên thần.
Your team has destroyed a tower.
Các chiến thần của tháp quang minh không chỉ có vài người thôi đâu.
Onslaught.
Tên nổ.
Ultimate.
Quang minh mang đến cho
An
ta sức mạnh.
ally has been defeated. Your team has destroyed a tower. Your team has destroyed a tower. Shut down.
Tên thần.
Shut down. You have been defeated.
Ta không thể kiên trì